Okay, we'll discuss the schedules which are in the back of this application. So let's go ahead and get started. Part 9, Financial Data. For the purpose of this schedule, years in existence refer to completed tax years. If in existence 4 or more years, complete the schedule for the most recent 4 tax years. If in existence more than 1 year but less than 4 years, complete the statements for each year in existence and provide projections of your likely revenues and expenses based on a reasonable and good faith estimate of your future finances for a total of 3 years of financial information. If in existence less than 1 year, provide projections of your likely revenues and expenses for the current year and the 2 following years based on a reasonable and good faith estimate of your future finances for a total of 3 years of financial information. And if you have any questions about what I just read, please refer to your instructions for the 1023 application for recognition of exemption and refer to Part 9, which is the financial data. Since you are starting a 501c3 nonprofit organization, you will not have, more than likely, any financial data. So all of your information that you put into this financial data spreadsheet will be projections, and that's fine. The IRS understands that if you're just getting started, you will not have any financial data to include. So for the current tax year, we will put whatever month you are submitting this application as the from date. From, let's say, if you submit your application July of this year, you have from July 2015 to December 2015, and you would just project the amount of revenues that you will receive and the amount of expenses you will incur. Now this goes back to what we talked about in video number 1 when I talked about how to create your financial statement or your financial data. And we want to always remember that we never know how much money we're going to get from revenues. We always have to project that, but we should know, or you should know, how much money you need to operate your nonprofit organization because those are your expenses. So you should know how much money you need to provide program services, how much money you need to cover your operating costs, and how much money you need to cover your personnel costs. All of those things should be a given, and you should have already completed the spreadsheet to show your expenses as well as the total expenses. So what I recommend doing when you come to this financial data page, I recommend going all the way down to line number 14 to start with. Start with line number 14 here, and you would indicate your fundraising expenses because you need fundraising money. You need money to raise money. So your fundraising expenses would be listed in 14, and then you would just go complete the information in lines 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. You would complete all of that information, putting in whatever data you've already compiled, and then you would total your expenses. You would add lines 14 through 23 and put that total in line 24. Now, I suggest after you've done that, go back up to your revenues because again, you don't know how much you know that how much you need, but you don't know exactly where that money is going to come from. So we're going to make some educated guesses on where the money is going to come from. Most people put the revenues in line 1 because most revenues are going to come in the form of gifts, grants, and contributions. So let's say that your total expenses equal $100,000, and if you believe that you're going to get revenues from just the sources listed in line 1, then you would put $100,000 on line 1 and be done with it. But I would like for you to look at lines 2 all the way through line 12, so that you can see whether or not the revenues you are going to receive may fall into one of these categories. And once again, I always refer to your instructions, but you may receive revenue from, or you may project that you're going to receive revenue from one of the sources listed in lines 1 through 12. So please make sure that you read these line items and then determine whether or not you're going to have revenues to come from those items. And then you want to total all of your revenues together for line 13, your total revenue, and your total revenue should equal your total expenses, equal or either surpass your total expenses. So you don't want your revenue line to be less than your total revenues to be less than your total expenses, because that's a sure way to get your application rejected from the IRS. We can't start out saying that you're going to operate in the red. Now, for the subsequent years, remember we have to have a total of 3 years of revenues. So for the 2 succeeding years in B and C, I normally just add a 10% increase to every item listed in this particular spreadsheet. So for column B, I would put from January 2016 to December 2016 if I'm using the calendar year, and I would just increase every item from column A by 10% and put that total in column B for each item. And I would do the same thing for column C, which would be January 2017 to December 2017, and I would just increase the information in line in column B by 10% and place that increase in column C. So that is your financial data. That's very important that we create this financial data sheet as honestly and as accurately as we possibly can, because it determines, or it lets the IRS representative that's processing your application, it lets them know that you are aware of what you're doing and you are comfortable with creating a financial data sheet. Let's go to the next page. Okay, let's go to the next page. Now, the next page is a continuation of your financial data, but this time we're looking at the balance sheet. Now, if you're familiar with accounting, you know that your balance sheet is composed of 3 components: assets, liabilities, and most of the time the third component is called owner's equity. But you have assets, liabilities, and in this case they call it fund balances or net assets. So we again are projecting. We may not have anything to put here, but let's project honestly how much assets we may have in our bank account in terms of cash for any given period. Let's say for next year. Let's say for the end of the year. Just again, we're making projections. How much cash do you project? And then look at all of the other asset line items to project how much you will have in each one of those categories. For this example, we see that the person is projecting that they're going to have $5,000 in cash and they're not going to have any other assets. So the total is going to be $5,000. So they would put $5,000 in line 11. So that liabilities, let's say that they don't anticipate having any liabilities. And liabilities, of course, is something that you owe. So let's say that they don't have any liabilities, so their total fund balances or net assets would be $5,000. And total liabilities and fund balances or net assets would be $5,000. So that's how you create a balance sheet. And once again, these are projections. The IRS does not have any type of expectation that this is going to be 100% accurate, but they just want to see if you can complete a balance sheet. Number 19, have there been any substantial changes in your assets or liabilities since the end of the period shown above? And we'll just put no there. Let's go down now to section part 10, the public charity status. Now, part 10 is designed to classify you as an organization that is either a private foundation or a public charity. Public charity status is a more favorable tax status than a private foundation status. If you are a private foundation, Part X is designed, or Part 10, is designed to further determine whether you are a private operating foundation. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you the answer to this. 1, 2, 3, and 4. The answers should be no, because you are applying to be a public charity so that you can provide services for your community. If you were applying to be a foundation, that would mean that you are planning to distribute money to charitable organizations, and that's not what you're planning to do. You're planning to be a charitable organization that's going to provide some type of service to the community. So all of those answers 1 through 4 will be no. So let's go down to number 5, because this is extremely important. Question number 5. If you answered no to line 1A, indicate the type of public charity status you are requesting by checking one of the choices below. You may check only one box. Well, I'm going to tell you, none of the boxes on this page, A through D, would be the correct box to check. So let's go on to the next page. You want to check box G, because this box G is for an organization that receives a substantial part of its financial support in the form of contributions from publicly supported organizations, from a governmental unit, or from the general public. So G is the best public charity status that you can select because it gives you the most broad way in which to receive money. The other ones are a little more difficult to receive money. They're a little more restrictive, but G is the best option. And also keep in mind, or let me point out rather, that once you are approved by the IRS, you will receive a determination letter stipulating that you have been approved for the 501c3 status. That letter, that determination letter, will also list the public charity status. So savvy investors will look for that public charity status that's listed in G here to determine the type of public charity status you have, which will further help them make a decision on whether or not they should invest in your organization. Now, as you can see with the red instructions here, it says do not complete line 6A because request for advance ruling is not available. So you can omit this entire section here. Section 6A, just omit that section, ignore it. Now, 6B, request for a definitive ruling. Check this box if you have completed one tax year of at least 8 full months and you are requesting a definitive ruling. Let's just ignore this because if you're brand new, you're not going to, this is not relevant to you at all. So let's just ignore 6B as well. And we'll just move down to 7. Did you receive any unusual grants during any of the years shown in Part 9-A, Statement of Revenues and Expenses? So that goes back to our financial data sheet, and it asks the question, one of those line items asks the question of if you received any unusual grants, and we would just answer no to that question because more than likely you didn't. But if you did, you want to explain the name of the contributor, the date and amount of the grant, a brief description of the grant, and explain why it is unusual. But again, more than likely your answer here will be no. Finally, we are on Part 11, which is the last part in the application. And Part 11 is the user fee information. This section explains how much money you owe the IRS or you would need to pay the IRS to process this application for you. You must include a user fee payment with this application. It will not be processed without your paid user fee. If your average annual gross receipts have exceeded or will exceed $10,000 annually over a 4-year period. So for the next 4 years, every year, if your gross receipts or your revenues from grants, fundraising, and from investments will exceed $10,000, then you have to pay $850 to have this application processed. If your gross receipts have not exceeded or will not exceed $10,000 annually over a 4-year period, then you only have to pay $400. Refer to the instructions for Part 11 for a definition of gross receipts over a 4-year period. So look at your instructions. Now, let me tell you something. If you go back to financial data and your total revenues in that financial data column number A, or B or C, exceeds $10,000, then you have to pay $850 because your financial data shows what you are projecting to receive in revenues. So if you're projecting that you're going to get over $10,000, then that's the question here. So you have to pay $850. So number one, have your annual gross receipts averaged or are they expected to average not more than $10,000? If the answer to that question is yes, then you put yes. Now, if the answer to that question is yes, check the box on line 2 and enclose a user fee of $400. If the answer to that question is no, then you want to put check box 3 and include a fee of $850. So this is incorrect. Let me change that. So let me read that again since that answer was incorrect. Have your annual gross receipts averaged or are they expected to average not more than $10,000? The answer to that question is no. If no, check the box on line 3 and enclose a user fee payment of $850. So that's what I've done. Now it's time for you to sign your name, then print your name, and then print your title and print the date in this bottom area here. Please sign here and complete all of that information. We have completed the application. Now it's time to just take a look at the schedules. Now some people have to complete the schedules depending upon the type of nonprofit organization that you have. So that's why I want to briefly, I mean very briefly, breeze through these schedules so that you can at least know what they are. But I haven't had a client yet in my 11 years of doing this work that had to complete a schedule. But I do want to show them to you. Okay. Schedule A, if you're going to be a church, you need to complete Schedule A. If you're going to be a school, college, or university, then you need to complete this Schedule B. If you're going to be a hospital or a medical research organization, you need to complete Schedule C. If you're going to be a 509(a)(3) supporting organization, you need to complete Schedule D. If you're an organization not filing your Form 1023 within 27 months of formation, like we talked about before, if your date on your Articles of Incorporation are 27 months or older than the date in which you submit this application, then you need to complete this Schedule E. If you're planning to provide homes for the elderly or handicapped and low-income housing, you need to complete Schedule F. If you are a successor to other organizations, then you need to complete Schedule G. If you're planning to provide scholarships, fellowships, educational loans, or other educational grants to individuals and private foundations requesting advance approval of individual grant procedures, then you need to complete Schedule H. That's it. So if your organization does not meet the standards of any of the schedules, you don't have to print those schedules out to submit with your application packet. Just don't print them. We are at the Form 1023 checklist. Now this must be included in your application at the very top. So once you've completed all of the application and you have all of your attachments turned face down on your desk like I asked you to do or recommended that you do, you want to take those attachments, put them to the back of this application packet. Complete this checklist here because the IRS has a certain way in which they want the information to be in the packet, and their directions are listed here. This is how they want things in the packet. All of these things may not be relevant to you. You may not have everything that's listed here, but whatever you have that's listed here, please put them in the correct order, the way that they are listed here. And you want to make a copy of this checklist. It's a 2-pager, and then you want to put it the checklist on the very top of your application. And then you want to mail your Form 1023, your user payment, all of the attachments to the address Internal Revenue Service, P.O. Box 192, Covington, Kentucky 41012-0192. If you want to use express service, the address for that is listed here too. I also like to include a cover letter just to give the IRS representative that's going to be reviewing your packet an idea of what you're doing and what type of information is included in the packet. I always think it's a good idea just to have a cover letter with your letterhead because it looks a little more professional than for them to just receive a packet in the mail with the checklist and then the application after that. Introduce yourself. If you have a business card, include that as well. All right, well, this concludes our on-demand class, Completing IRS Form 1023. This is video number 4 of 4, and we had to break the videos down because of the size in terms of memory space. It makes it very difficult when you have a very large video or a very large document to send through email. So we had to break it up into 4 separate videos. If you have any questions at all once you're going through this application packet, please call me at 704-968-2769. That's 704-968-2769. And as a friendly reminder, always make a copy of your entire application packet. What I normally do for my clients, once I've completed their application packet with everything that's going in the mail, I make a copy of everything and I give them a copy of everything to put in their files, and then they know exactly what they've sent to the Internal Revenue Service. So that's just a best practice that I like to share. Thank you so much for purchasing this class, and I hope that it serves your needs and benefits you in a very profound way. Thank you. This is Susan Woods, facilitating the on-demand class, Completing IRS Form 1023, Application for Recognition of Exemption. Have a good day.